Hi, welcome back to Broken and Brilliant. I'm Carrie O'Toole with Carrie O'Toole Ministries, and I have some really important guests with me here today. And I can tell you that because of all the tech problems we're having, something doesn't want this message to get out, and we are plowing through. So I am welcoming back Jessie Hogsett. Jessie and I did a podcast a couple years ago, and it has had 8,000 views. It's been an amazing tool for a lot of people. Jessie grew up with a really rough life. His beginning to his life was tough, and he was diagnosed with reactive attachment disorder as a little young man, and he's had a lot of trauma in his life. So the first podcast talked a lot about that. Well, recently, Jessie and his wife Brenda have had some amazing healing in their marriage and in their lives. And they are starting another book now to talk about that. And so I wanted to have both of them on. So welcome, if you would, Jessie Hogsett and Brenda Hogsett. Hi, you guys. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us again.
Yes, hi, Carrie. Yes, thanks for having us again.
So just to let everybody out there know, we started once and had a little emotional breakdown. We started again, and we were doing great. And then we realized that we were not recording one of the pieces that needed to be recording. And so thank you guys for your patience, through all of this, because I really believe this is an important message.
Absolutely.
And so what we're wanting to talk about today, let's start with Jessie. What was it like for you when we recorded before? You were talking about how you were really in your head. Tell me a little bit about that.
Being in my head you don't hear or see or listen to anything that's going on around you. You're constantly thinking about past memories, mostly bad, nothing good. It's all bad. And you're thinking about, well, I know I was thinking about everybody and everything that pissed me off, so to speak, and made me upset and did me wrong. And then, I'd get angry in my head and I'd start planning out, okay, how I was going to act out this anger. What was I going to hit first? What was I going to destroy next? Who was I going to, make upset? Whose feelings am I going to hurt because it's going to make me feel better? It's going to make me feel better to tear somebody else down so I don't feel like garbage, alone. She feels like garbage more than me, so hey, I feel better. That's what goes on in my head. That's what went on in my head.
Let's talk just a little bit about this reactive attachment disorder. Can you explain what that is? Just give maybe a couple of minutes of what it was like for you growing up and how this impacted you and the way that you see other people and saw the world.
Yeah, absolutely. So just basic reactive attachment disorder is from birth to about age 3. Kids love shelter, food. And when you don't have that, when kids aren't given that, whether it be through abuse, neglect, physical or emotional, they start to figure out ways to get that on their own by whatever means necessary. They learn that they can't trust anybody to help them out or be there. If a baby cries, they'll trust that somebody's going to come pick them up and change their diaper or feed them. If a young boy such as myself fell down and got hurt, I would trust my mother would come pick me up. That never happened.
Right.
So growing up, you don't trust people. You don't get close to people. You do whatever you have to do to get your needs met, lying, manipulating, stealing, whatever. You have severe anger issues. So growing up, viewing people, I didn't trust anybody. I was out for myself. It was me. That was it, against the world. I didn't care who I hurt, what I did, what I destroyed, what I stole. I was getting what I wanted by any means necessary, and nobody out there would be able to tell me different or help me or nothing. I didn't want anything to do with anybody.
Right.
Yeah.
So how did you end up getting married?
Yeah, see, that's a question a lot of people have. So I got married because, I met Brenda and I thought she was very beautiful. And I knew 2 weeks after I got her a promise ring. A lot of people say, well, that's kind of too soon. I'm like, well,
Right, we were crazy.
so what? Okay. But we got married. The inner part of my heart wanted to get married, did have feelings for her. And I let that part of my heart take over that day when, getting married, and it was beautiful. I saw her walking down the aisle, and it was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. And that's why I got married. I didn't want to be alone. I wanted somebody to be there by my side. I wanted to have kids. I wanted just companionship, and yeah, that's why I got married.
Now, Brenda, tell us about when you met Jesse. What did you know about him before he proposed and before you got married?
So the first night I met him was a very unique situation. I went to work at a security company, and he was my supervisor, and our boss says, okay, you're going to be with him and he's going to train you. Well, he was supposed to tell me stuff about work, and we were talking personal stuff. He was talking about what he wanted for his life. We talked about how many kids we wanted, not together, just in general. It was a very unique situation. I told him as soon as he walked out of the doors and I saw him, it was like smoke and like slow motion. And I looked at him and I'm like, oh my God, this is the man I'm going to marry. It literally, that was what I thought. And we talked that whole night. And I guess he was working a double. And but ultimately, at the end of my shift, I said, okay, bye, have a good night. And he ended up asking me out. So he is like, hey, you want to go to breakfast? And you're like, he's
That's not
telling
your
me,
usual first date. Yeah.
no, but he asked me out. And then years later, he's like, you're the first girl I ever asked out. He's like, you're the first person I ever said, hey, do you want to go out with me? Because he was afraid of rejection. He was afraid of, you were a beautiful girl. And he's like, I just felt really comfortable with you. And something just told me, hey, ask her, And so he took the chance. That right there, I look back and I know just him asking me to go out was a huge thing. Mm-hmm. And, we were together every day for 2 weeks. Like, I'd go home and he'd call me, come back, and I would. And you know what I mean? It was just, it was the honeymoon phase, but we opened up about a lot of stuff. We talked about our past. He told me about his son that was in Oregon and how his ex left him. And I just felt real, true empathy and compassion for him. And so sad that why would anyone not want this man? And I mean, I remember telling my mom, like, not being, he's perfectly imperfect. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't necessarily want to fix him because I didn't know what all needed fixing, per se. But ultimately, the first month, I knew I wanted to marry him, and he did have a
you
lot
know
of bad
about
days.
his attachment issues at that time?
Not in the first month. No, I didn't know until he went. So after 3-4 months that we were together, he went into treatment. He was on a 72-hour hold because he tried to commit suicide. And he was on a 72-hour hold, and they kept him for 2 weeks. And then all of his therapy sessions, I would go in on. Some of them, they'd have me come in and see him and whatnot and talk about, because I was his girlfriend. So I at that time reassessed everything. I was talking to my mom, like, he's got a lot of problems.
Yeah, this is like, more than I was thinking. Yeah.
I'm 18 years old. Am I able to, am I strong enough? I remember talking to my mom, and, most people would tell me, just leave him. And I remember my mom telling me, honey, just, Jesus loves us. My mom is a very, she taught me my Christian values. And so I remember my mom telling me, so he's human, and she just said, like, if you guys love each other, you can overcome it, and you're brought into his life for a reason, and just remember that. And so she was the one that told me, you and Jessie are meant to be together. You're in his life for a reason, and so I just held on to that.
So then let's talk into your marriage. What was that like after the honeymoon?
Are you asking me or Jessie?
Either one.
We didn't have a honeymoon phase. Like, everybody talks about this blissful beautiful honeymoon phase that you have for the first month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever. We got married and it was like the end. We got married and we were throwing rings down the hall. He was telling me, I want an annulment. I don't want to be with you. I don't want to be married to you. I hate you. I'm not in love with you. And everything you could do to push somebody away. It was like in the first year, you could get an annulment and it doesn't cost anything. Okay. After a year, it's a divorce. So in his mind, let me see if I could push it. You know, it was a trial run in his mind, you know what I mean? In our minds, it was a trial run. Normally you do those things before you get married, you know, if this is somebody you want to be married to. We were 20 and 21. Like, I mean.
Yeah, but I think also with that too, Carrie, is prior to getting married, knowing I wanted to get married, I didn't understand fully what marriage meant. To me, it was, okay, you put a ring on your finger and you see that person every day and you kiss them, good morning, goodbye, you have kids, and you go on about your day, you know? I didn't understand what it entailed. Am I saying don't get married? No, but please understand what it entails before you do get married, okay? Because once that ring goes on that finger, there is truthfully more expectation involved. The closeness, the emotional connection, the physical connection. Yeah, that's why we
for
fought.
many people is like the thing they're looking forward to the most about marriage. And that was tough for you, right, Jessie?
Absolutely.
Yeah, why is that?
Because I had, in a sense, growing up not trusting anybody and not putting myself out there, now getting married to a woman who requires that, that's the tough part. Because now I all of a sudden, just because I have a ring on my finger, now I've got to open up and put myself out there and put my trust in you. Yeah, not going to happen. You know, I can love you by cooking and cleaning and doing laundry and going to work and paying the bills and buying the stuff.
Take it or leave it.
But I'm not going to get emotionally connected to you because why should I? Didn't trust anybody. I'm not comfortable with it. I'm going to sabotage the heck out of it if we start to get, and that's what happened with the
So give
closer
me an
we got.
example of that. When you started to sabotage, what would happen? You would start to feel close.
Yes,
What would cause you to start to feel close? And then what would happen inside you?
absolutely. So caused me to, so my heart and my mind were kind of battling with each other. Okay. My heart was an adult, you know, in the mind, I had an adult heart. Let's just put it that way. And I knew, because I knew right from wrong, and I knew, you know, what needed to happen. And my heart generally says, you know, I need to be close to her. She's a woman. She has needs. She deserves, you know, to be kissed and hugged and have affection. But then my mind would revert back to this 5-year-old boy where that connection was lost. And I'd start to get angry and I'd pull away and I'd call her names and I would start to get a lot of anxiety. I'd start to sweat. My heartbeat would be, you know, faster. My mind would literally stomp on my heart, say, you're not going to listen to your heart, get angry, break stuff, run away, you know, threaten her, do whatever you have to do to get her away because we don't want you to get close. We don't want you to have to open up because the moment you do, you're going to have to start trusting her until you're in. And that, nope, we don't want you to do that. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And that happened every single time.
Well, and I love your picture of that little boy. You know, I work with clients all the time, and I've had men who talk about when they get into something with their wife, you know, their wife hurts them or whatever, and they're like, well, that's not fair. And they start to sound like a little boy. And there is something about that. You know, when we're really wounded at a certain age, we get stuck there emotionally. And so, you know, Brenda, could you tell when all of a sudden it felt like, I don't feel like I'm dealing with a man here?
Oh yeah. There's plenty of times where I'm like, you know what? You're acting like you're 5. So you better stop. You know what I mean? Like, and it's get out of your head. You know, oh yeah, I would know, you know.
Which then doesn't help either, because when
No.
you're telling someone who already feels
Yes.
shamed and little, and then you say you're acting like a 5-year-old, no man
No,
wants to
for
hear you act
sure.
like a
No,
5-year-old.
of course, you know. And well, and over the years, I learned how to approach things. It was always my approach, you know. When he would do things, I'm like, seriously, you're acting like a child, you know. And it wasn't to put him down. It was to put it into perspective, is what I was trying to do. And it's all about delivery. Like that's the biggest thing, is I needed to really be able to learn how to communicate with him, to where it was peace offering. My hand, like, I'm coming to you out of love. And I needed to be able to show that and let him know that you're okay. You're safe. This is a neutral ground. This is safe ground. You know what I mean?
And could
And
you re-engage then, Jessie?
Uh,
not in those
no,
times.
not in those times.
Now,
No.
now you do.
Now I do, but
But
not in those times. No.
So can I hear from you, Brenda, just for a little bit about what it was like during all of these years? Being married to a man who is afraid of rejection, who doesn't trust, who can't accept your love.
I ended up being diagnosed in 2015 with bipolar depression, bipolar 1, and PTSD. So what is that? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I have my own trauma. You know, I originally, when we had talked, you know, I was molested when I was 7. I've got my own trauma, but I did not have. He had the he had the mechanism, the defense mechanism. He had that invisible wall up. I didn't have that wall. I have always been open and honest. I've always been vulnerable. I've always been open, and I had nothing to shelter me. I had nothing to protect me. So I've always been exposed, and I've always been hurt. And over time, I just thought that's what I deserved. I started feeling like this is what I get. You know, this is my life, and I started accepting it. And it brought me into a really, really severe depression, to where he'd come home and I'd be in bed because I couldn't take care of our infant son, who had had open heart surgery, you know, and the house would be a mess. And he'd be like, another rough day, honey, another hard day. And I would just pull the covers over my head, and our son would be in a dirty diaper, you know, needing to be changed. And I couldn't do it. And I didn't know how all that came about. Like, I look back now and I'm like, oh my God, I don't remember her very much.
Right.
Fog.
Well,
But
and
I,
that's trauma too. Absolutely. It messes with your memory.
you know, we're both broken.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're both, I say, perfectly imperfect. You know what I mean? We're both broken, and we really wanted change. I really wanted change. And I tried, you know, I started therapy. I started doing everything on myself.
Let's talk about that, because that was just very recent, correct? When did this all start?
So it was last year, I want to say November, December, but I've been doing therapy. But my new therapist, I've been, you know, over the years I've had therapy, but this therapist I've been seeing, I saw him 3 times a week. And my very first appointment, I went in and I said, here's all the garbage. I told him I was molested. I told him I went through this. My whole family blamed me. You know, I had the weight of my family on my shoulders at 7 years old. So mine was different. I had my whole family who didn't know how to take accountability for action. And everything was always on me. See that? Like with Mary. So anyway, my whole life, everything was my burden. Everything was on me. And I told my doctor, you have to know where I came from to know who I am today. I feel the weight of I feel the weight of the world on my shoulders, and I meant to carry it. It's my burden. So I wanted healing. I wanted change. And, you know, yes, I was a Christian. Yes, we were going to church. Yes, we had a relationship with the Lord, but I just felt there's these things I'm not able to let go. So once I changed, once I prayed, you know, once I became a righteous woman, living in the way that God wanted me to live, not watching things, not, making sure that what I saw and what I heard were positive things, not negative stuff. And I prayed for him. And just like I said before, my prayers for him, I was told by our pastor's wife, the prayers for your husband, the prayers for Jessie are heard from heaven. God hears your prayers more than his prayers from his own mother. Because we're married, the two are one. So because we're one, I'm praying for him. Like my prayers for him are heard more, and I believe that.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel 100% God definitely healed both of us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it was about healing. God really healed us. He started going to therapy with me reluctantly.
Well, yeah, talk about that just for a minute, Jessie.
Yeah. So therapy, I started, well, I was approached by her. Hey, you should come to therapy. I've got this really great therapist. He wants to meet you. And I'm like, no, therapy to me was a joke. It was
Yeah.
something that just didn't work. And it was like, whatever. No, I'm a tough nut to crack. And I'm not going to talk to him. If I don't talk to you, why would I talk to him? So a couple days, therapy sessions went by, and Brenda's like, you really should come. He's really a great guy. He's really excited about working with us both. He can help us, And part of me wanted to change because I was just so mentally tired of 19 years of roller coaster rides and putting her through crap and grief. I said, okay. So I went in there and listened. Halfway listened, some stuff kept, a lot of it went out my other ear because I've still the mentality this isn't going to work. I'm just here to please her and, whatever.
Do your duty. Yep.
Do my duty and
Show up.
whatever. Go through the emotions, go home and whatever. Well, it did help. Even the first session, just a little tiny bit. I'm not sure what because I ended up going back and went back a second time. And I was a little bit more relaxed. And we had homework given by the therapist, and we did it. Not all of it, but I fought like a little kid, doing homework. But we did it. We have a hot tub that we would get in once the kids go to bed, and that would be our chit-chat time, alone time. And that's where we did our homework, And so then I went back again to therapy. And then I started talking. I started opening up. I started, just letting it spill out like it was somebody else doing it for me. It's not something I say, well, I'm going to go to therapy today and I'm going to open up to this. No, it wasn't like that. I went in there and all of a sudden my mouth opened and all this stuff started coming out. And then March 5th, went to bed, still the same cold, closed off guy who didn't share his emotions or feelings with Brenda and who was only intimate once a month. Woke up March 6th to the most beautiful woman I had ever seen in my entire lifetime. Nothing else in my mind except her. And when I looked at her, I saw her soul. I instantly had remorse and regret for all the 19 years of garbage that I put her through and the way I acted. And I started getting this good anxiety going on in my chest, and I just started crying, and I'm like, what is going on? It was just something that I couldn't contain it. I just absolutely could not contain it at all. Something or whatever was just, I don't know.
And what did you end up saying it was?
So I tried to figure out why, after all this time, did I change overnight, just like that, and I hit my head on my door. Is it that? Did I jumble something in my brain? Did I rewire it magically? That didn't make sense. I'm thinking, well, did I take some medication for my heart or whatever that no, that didn't make sense. And
hallucinogenic?
the only other explanation was Brenda had been praying for years and intently, truthfully, from her heart, praying for the last 2 or 3 months. And I told her the only explanation I can have is your prayers have finally been answered. Because literally overnight like that. And from March 6th till now, it's been just amazing. But I have no problem telling her how I feel, what I'm feeling inside. I have no problem crying in front of her. We're intimate almost, it's probably TMI, but intimate almost like every night. And I say that
because, for 19 years.
Well, I'm saying that to put in perspective on how it used to be, once a month, if that, and now it's like we're intimate all the time. she would always be the one initiating any type of intimacy, whether it be kissing, hugging, whatever. It's me now. I never did that, ever.
I don't
Okay.
ask anymore. He just comes up
I
and
do it.
kisses me and
I
hugs
come up
me and
behind her, I hug her, I
Yeah.
initiate, our alone time. I plan dates for us. I just,
makes reservations at restaurants that I've always wanted to go to that he did, and
yeah.
just every
And
taking me, yeah,
it's an agape
amazing.
love is what
It's
it
really
is. A
amazing.
true agape love. Her and I went out and got, I don't know if you can see it up here or not.
Yeah, hold it steady there.
Matching
Okay.
tattoos.
Wow.
Okay, and it's a
Okay.
cross. And it has her name, my name, the date March 6, 2019,
Gosh.
and underneath it says soulmate on there. And I truly believe, from when she lost her job and ended up coming over to the security company, to where I was a supervisor at the security company, that, everything happens for a reason in our lifetime. And just everything that has happened put her into my life just as much as I was put into hers to help her from her destructive behaviors. She was put into mine to help me from my destructive behaviors. And we didn't know it. By all means, we had no clue whatsoever. But we stuck it out. We knew what our goal was. I would almost guarantee you there's no other woman in the world who would have put up with as much crap as I put her through. And for her to stay, that was a godly reason for her to stay. And now it's just gets better and better and better and better and better every single day.
I mean, we have struggles still, like when he was saying we have, the days are awesome, but sometimes, the first couple of weeks that he had I call it the awakening, the first couple of weeks of his awakening, when it was like a switch was turned on and everything, like he opened his heart just a little bit and then the floodgates opened and it rushed all over his body, in his heart, in his mind, and everything. And it was so overwhelming. And I told him, that's the Holy Spirit. What you felt was the Holy Spirit. And then I'm like, uh-oh.
I was just going to ask, what was this like for you?
Right. I was so happy that he had this spiritual awakening, emotional awakening. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, I was told many, many years ago that my husband would be the man holding the lantern. He would be the man holding the light for others to see. And I feel it was a prophecy. I feel it was something that was told to me that people were going to look to him for light. And the things that were missing, it wasn't so much me praying for him for me, it was praying that I knew what his purpose was and living in his purpose. I don't even, my train of thought.
Well, you were saying like how overwhelming it was for you right after all this happened. Tell us what that was like.
So, at first I was happy about it. I'm like, yes, this is great. And then he's like, is it too much? I'm like, oh no, it's never too much. Like but then I literally was like,
maybe it's too much.
no, well, literally I was just like, oh my gosh, it came into me about the all negative. I was like, oh, with good comes bad. And so it's like, oh, the enemy doesn't want Jessie to get his story out. The enemy doesn't, because God is using him and God has a plan. God has a plan for all of our lives. But everything that Jessie went through, he has a voice. And, he's the messenger telling God's message. And that's what I told him. I'm like, you're just the messenger and God's the message. And God's going to use you for his plan. You just had to be connected. You had to, and so he was being pulled and led, and he had these, I'm not sure if this is what I'm feeling, but this is what I think. What do you think? And, he's like, I don't want to be without you. I want to be at your shop every day. Maybe I'm meant to be your manager at your shop. And then he goes, I don't think it's that. He goes, look, I was the projection. I was his emotion.
I worked at Home Depot, right? I've been working there 7 years.
7 years.
And since this change, March 6th, I've been having a lot of anxiety. Good anxiety and bad anxiety. And for a while, I thought was because I wanted to be
Couldn't
with
be without
Brenda
me.
24 hours a
Mhm.
day, 7 days a week. I had to be there. It started off as a trust thing. Okay, now that I was feeling all these emotions that I'd never felt before, now I wanted to know, okay, what's every single damn thing you've done prior to now? I want to know it all. Put it out all on the table so I can learn to trust you, because I still didn't trust her. So all these anxieties, I thought it was me wanting to be with her 24/7, to keep tabs on her, to check on her, also because I missed her and there's a newfound love. And then I started thinking, oh, I was supposed to get a promotion at work to be an assistant store manager, and that would have required that I would have to fly out to Atlanta and stay there for a week away from her, not knowing what was going on, and that just sent my anxiety through the roof. I'm like, I'm not doing this. I don't want to go to Atlanta, blah, blah, blah.
Like you worked your whole life to
And
try to get this.
so then I started thinking, you know what? What if I'm having these anxieties because I'm not where I'm supposed to be physically at my job? So then I started talking to Brenda about it, and then I started getting this pull, much like I did when I was getting that pull to write the first book, telling me, you need to write this, it's going to be good, you need to restart the Patches Foundation. And it just kept getting stronger and louder, and I started listening with my heart, with my mind, and really starting to listen. And then I was talking to Brenda and told her how I was feeling. I said, you know, I think it's a message that I am on the wrong path. I said, one part of my path is now great, us. The other part of my path is still not fixed yet. I said, I think I'm going to put in my notice at my job. And it was kind of scary because then the weight's on her shoulders, right? And I thought about it and thought about it. Well, one day I just went into work, gave him my keys, and said, it was great, but I have a bigger calling right now that I just can't explain. And as soon as I did that, Carrie, it wasn't anxiety. All the anxiety had left.
Wow.
Just a sudden peace came over, like, you're finally doing what I've been telling you to do all this time. You just weren't listening.
Well, and you weren't ready either.
I wasn't
Yeah.
ready. And Brenda didn't have anxiety. She felt instantly at peace. And that was the last part of the thing that had to be fixed. And now we're just on a great path, you know, getting stronger
Right.
and stronger and stronger and healthier every single day.
Well, and I hear you talking about writing this new book. And when I read your first book, Jessie, I remember feeling like I was reading it. It was written from the perspective of a young boy,
Right.
you know, and because that's where you were kind of stuck. And now you're talking about writing this book. And tell us the name of the title of the new book.
So it's going to be titled Detached, okay? But it's going to be detached from fear to love and trust, is what it is.
Flipping everything upside down from before.
Yes.
Wow.
Yep. And it's going to start off where the first Detached book left off, was when we got married. But it's going to go into detail on what Brenda went through and her emotions, and what she had to do to just basically emotionally and mentally and physically survive. It's going to talk about the crap that I put her through and what I was thinking and feeling, and how, yes, even though people can behave this way, they still have hope and they still can get married and still have a positive outcome. And it's going to talk about the change that we went through, and ultimately how we now have what I said was an agape love, and how no matter what your past is, especially with trust issues and attachment issues, you can absolutely learn and change to have one of the best, healthiest, trusting physical and mental relationships you can ever imagine, which you never thought possible.
Amen.
You know, Jessie, you just bring hope to so many. And you too, Brenda. I mean, your strength to go through, both of you, I mean, in different ways. You each have this strength, this survival that for a while was used to keep each other out.
Yeah.
But now it's been used to overcome and
You
bring
can-
you together.
If you were to make it a cartoon, You could literally see these people doing everything they can to sabotage and to, I just want you to pay attention to me. You know what I mean? And we're just going back and forth to where like, oh, surrendering. That's what it's about. Surrendering, giving it all to God, giving all of our bad stuff to come together going, I know you have bad stuff, but I love you and accept you, and vice versa, to where we can have peace.
Well, you're not fighting each other anymore.
No.
You're fighting together.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've told him, and I've always told him, you are not my enemy.
Mm-hmm.
We don't battle against flesh and bone.
Mm-hmm.
We battle against forces of the unseen world and principalities of evil.
Yeah.
You're not my enemy.
Right.
Yeah.
The enemy is my enemy.
Well, and I think that's why the battle was so strong and so hard too,
Yeah.
Jessie, and even as you move forward into this, we talked about how many thousands of people have already viewed the podcast we did before. And I know this isn't the only platform you're on. You've been speaking all over. You've been talking to other people with your book. And now you're upping it to a new level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the warfare hits hard when you move into a new level.
Yes, it
sometimes.
does.
And we have to keep remembering that it's not, oh, just forget it. This isn't worth it. It's like, no, this is even more plow ahead because this is how important it is.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And Jessie, you bring hope to so many of my clients, to me personally, you bring hope. There are not many people who have suffered through reactive attachment disorder who are healthy enough in their adult years to be able to speak like this.
Yeah.
That have the insight even to be able to talk about this and who don't get defensive and wouldn't start a fight. So to be able to hear you speaking about this, and Brenda, to hear your perspective on what it's been like to live in this type of a marriage it has been a battle. It has been tough. You've had your own stuff to deal with, and you've had to hang in there with his when you didn't know what he was going to do day in, day out.
Exactly.
It's painful. And our God is amazing.
Yeah. Amen.
Yes.
God is
this is stunning. This is stunning. It is miraculous.
Yeah, it's a miracle. It totally is. And when a couple Mondays ago when we had therapy, Jessie was talking to our therapist about, I'm going to write a second book and I'm going to this. He's like, I'd like to start patches. And our therapist is just looking at him and he's like, what do you think? He goes, I think this is great, Jessie. I think this is totally amazing. And he's like looking at me like, see, I'm not crazy. You know what I mean? Like,
Tell us what Patches is.
So Patches is an organization which I started quite some years ago and put off to the wayside because I wasn't just ready for it. Mm-hmm. But it's an acronym. It stands for Promoting Attachment for Traumatized Children's Hearts and Educating Society.
Oh my gosh.
And right? Isn't that great?
It's just a little thing.
It's
right?
Just a little
it's just a little thing.
I mean,
My goal.
Say that again very slowly. Say the words again.
Promoting attachment for traumatized children's hearts and educating society.
I mean, each one of those words is like you could just sit on that for a second.
Mm-hmm.
It's huge.
Huge.
So my goal for that is to eventually have a network in each state where people can go to families' homes and be like respite and talk to their kids and talk to their families and do workshops and be able to have a group of people who can travel and talk to organizations and just promote change. Mm-hmm. It's I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and I see a lot of families talking negatively about their kids with reactive attachment disorder. No fault to them, by all means.
Right.
But they need help and they need hope.
I have done some parent coaching through some different either respite or treatment facilities. They've had me talking to the parents, and one time one of the facilitators said to me, could you talk to these parents because they're all so angry at these kids and they just don't have any compassion for these kids, and they wanted me to come in and get those parents in line.
Yeah.
Basically.
Right.
And, so when I was talking to the parents, I said, here's the deal. You all probably have PTSD.
Yeah.
The trauma that your child came into your home with because most of the time we're talking about foster and adopted
Yeah.
children here. The
It
trauma
rubbed
that
off on them.
the trauma that these children brought into your home is traumatizing to you.
Yes.
And you didn't know it. And here's the thing, you can't get somebody to have compassion for someone else who is traumatizing them until their own trauma has been acknowledged and that they have compassion for them. So I come
Yes.
in and really talk to the parents about how I get it. I lived this. I know what it feels like, and it's
Right.
horrific. And the trauma that the parents are having to deal with is so hard. But then, as the parents start to heal, I notice that they start having compassion. All of a sudden, they're like, oh my gosh, is this what my child felt?
Mm-hmm.
Is this what they went through?
Right.
Yes. Now you've got the compassion.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
it's so important what you're doing.
Well,
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to it. I know um, it's going to be a big task, but it's God led. I know this is
Yeah.
what I'm supposed to do, and it's still very early in the stages, so I'm still trying to secure some funding to get it off the ground. But I know so far everything that has been put in our path, God has taken care of, and I know
Right.
He will take care of this, and it's one step at a time, right?
Well, and Jessie, just that statement right there from a kid who learned not to trust, sitting there saying that you're trusting God for this,
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's a
that's
miracle right there in
that is
itself.
a miracle in
You know?
itself.
Yeah,
And I told him, you doing this and putting all this stuff out there on your platforms and whatnot, people are involved. And you who you've never put yourself out there vulnerable, and now you are. People are connected, and
Yeah.
people want to see, like, you are bringing hope to so many people. God is using you to
Yes.
share the message, and
Yes.
people are wanting to know, what are you doing? How are you getting through this? And praying for you and helping you. And I said, you're going to change so many people's lives.
Yeah.
He's already changed mine.
Yeah.
So,
Well, mine too.
and so,
In fact, just to share the story real quick, and I know we have to get going here pretty
Yeah.
soon. We have to go to our daughter's tournament, but the other day I had posted, I had joined a
Christian Rad Group.
Christian Rad group online, posted a couple things, and put a link to my book as a resource on there, not for promotion or anything like that, just a resource. And there was a little backlash for it. They thought I was promoting, and that's okay. I have grace. I get it. But one of the ladies had private messaged me and sent me a picture. Well, I was talking to her son and and told her, I'm reading a book about an adult um, who survived through reactive attachment. He's married. He has 5 kids, and her son was, wow, I can get married. And he's got reactive attachment. He goes, I can get married. I can have kids. He said, that's cool. She sent me a picture and said, I just want you to see one child's life you have already changed. And so that's why I do it. And
Yeah.
that's why I'm going to continue to do it.
Well, I want to thank you both so much. This was a challenge today. It was a challenge emotionally. It was a challenge with the tech stuff. It was a challenge all the way around.
Yeah.
And but I believe it's important, and I want to thank you both so much. And
Well, thank you for having us.
as you move forward, maybe we can even do it again to get an
Absolutely.
update and hear how things are going.
Yeah, because
So
this is still in, it's in infant stages and the stage, but we're getting through it with God on our side. We have the Lord,
Yeah.
and we have each other,
Yep.
and we have all the supporters. We have everybody rooting for us, and
yeah.
so we're bringing everybody. He's bringing everybody along with him through this, and so it's definitely. I'm excited. I'm like,
Well, I feel so honored. Thank you so much for taking the time today to share this with me. I'm so thankful. Good
Well,
to
thanks
have
for
you
having
on.
us, Carrie.
You bet. You bet.
All right.
Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you back here next time on Broken and Brilliant.